obviously I've turned into my right side, into my right hip. And then once I'm at the top, I mean, it really is it's a shift onto my left side. I try to get all that weight onto my left side as quickly as I possibly can.
Yeah.
You know, so from here, to bump to my left side, I sort of pressure into the ground so that, you know, I can then, you know, it's a bit like a box job for a squat. You're really trying to put force in the ground so that you can get that force coming up through your legs, you know, and the kinetic chain. So for me, what I like to feel to get speed is, you know, once I get into that left side, I get this left knee out of the way as quickly as possible. And that means that my hips turn quickly, my lower body turns quickly, and then my upper body just acts like a whip of the way through.
Yeah.
And it follows the lower body.
Absolutely.
So before we start off, we're going to go over two biomechanical terms: kinematics and kinetics. Kinematics is the study of motion as described in space and time. So literally, if I'm taking these simulated golf swings, it's the motion we can see with our naked eye. However, kinetics are the forces that cause or are resultant of said motion. So these forces we cannot see if I'm swinging a club, but I can feel them. Example, if I take a backswing here, and then I let my right hand go and lose the tension of my left, the club wants to drop because of gravity. So we feel that. So that's the key difference between those two terms. Let's go a little bit more in detail now. When we set up to a golf ball, about to hit it, our main power source, or the forces that are being applied, are coming from the ground. And our connection to the ground is our feet. So sometimes this may be described as ground reaction forces, or some may describe it as coming from the ground up. So let's go over the ideal forces for a golf swing. It may vary, but these are ideal in order to be most optimal. So when I set up and I take my backswing, my ideal intention when it comes to forces is to load into my right heel. So if you see my toe is moving up here, that's an indication that I'm loaded into my right heel. Then, as we transition forward, right? The ideal force we want to apply is moving from the right heel to the left big toe, So from here, this is that shift that we usually see. So to the left toe. Now we have our lateral force. Now from here, in order for us to keep rotating, now we must transfer that force from the left big toe to our left heel. Now that is what enables us to turn all the way through to the finish. So now, let's go over the resultant motion that happens as a cause of those forces within our feet. So if I set up like I'm about to hit a golf ball here, the first thing that is happening is as I rotate into my backswing and feel like I'm loading into that right heel, is my right hip is getting internally rotated. So let's try that again. So we take it back to the right heel. Right hip is getting internally rotated. As well as, if we look at the left, it's also moving into internal rotation slightly. Then from here, to transition from our right heel to our left big toe, the initial move to get towards the target is we're moving from internal rotation on the right into internal rotation of the left. But as that happens, now our right hip is moving into external rotation as it stays stable. So we'll try it again. Internal rotation of the right, internal rotation of the left, to still internal rotation of the left, to external rotation of the right. Now, as we get to this position, then in order to keep rotating, now we need to move into external rotation of the left hip and moving into internal rotation of the right hip. Now that brings us down towards impact where I'm feeling like I'm moving in toward my left heel. Now my left leg, my left hip is externally rotated, my right hip is internally rotated. Now from here, in order to get to the finish, now I'm moving back to internal rotation of the left hip as I post up, and I'm still having my right hip internally rotated as I move all the way to the finish. So that is a resultant motion of the forces that are being caused within our feet. After reviewing all of those movements, you may find that you're limited within your hips to do that. So here's an exercise that I like to do and apply with my students on the range as a warm-up to evaluate their movement and also to help improve it. So take a resistance band, so then put it under your feet and put it just above your knees. Then from here, let me get a little bit closer so you can see it in more detail. From here, what I want you to do is spread your feet apart like you're about to hit the golf ball and set up here. Put your arms across your chest. And the goal here is to keep the upper body stable. And what you're going to do is I'm going to start with the right leg first. I'm going to internally and externally rotate my hip as my upper body stays stable and the opposite leg stays stable. So do that about 6 times on each side. So let's do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Try the other side. So now this time, my right leg is going to stay stable, upper body going to stay stable, and the left leg is going to move from internal and external rotation. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here we go. Now, you may find it hard to keep one leg stable or to keep your upper body stable when doing this exercise. And that's okay, we all have a starting point, but it's just a way to evaluate the certain movements that we have in our golf swing. So those movements we were talking about before, where we load into the right heel, move into the left big toe, and move back into the left heel, the movements in the hips that accommodate with that, we can't expect to be able to do those movements if we can't physically apply them. So keep that in mind. Let's discuss some potential swing faults of not being able to execute those certain movements within the hips. So let's start off with the backswing. So if I were to go in my backswing and I could not internally rotate my right hip, the first thing that can happen is can sway up the ball because I can't rotate into it. So the only way I can compensate is by moving too far off of it. That's the first thing. The second thing is I just won't have enough turn. So I don't have to internally rotate into that hip. The third thing that can happen, especially if I cannot internally rotate my left along with my right, is reverse pivot or reverse spine angle if I can't do both. So those are some of the swing faults in the backswing. Now let's discuss some of the swing faults coming in the downswing. So if I'm coming down, I'm moving from internal rotation to the right and internal rotation to the left. Then I move to internal rotation to the left and external to the right. If I can't do that, especially internally rotate my hip into the left, first thing that can happen is I can early extend. Or I can just hang back on my right. Or even more is get ahead of the ball because I can't internally rotate my hip. And also, if we can't externally rotate the right, all these swing faults happen as well. So I can either move too far ahead because I can't, I'll hang back, or I'll early extend. Now lastly, some of the swing faults that can happen moving into the follow through. So we load up, internally rotating to the right, internally rotating to the left, internally rotate to the left, externally rotating to the right. And then now as I move into the left heel, I'm going to external and internal with the hip. Now, if I can't do this, the same things can happen. I can hang back, I can early extend, or I can move too far ahead of it. So, then from here, the last part is being able to internally rotate into the left hip and internally rotate with the right. Now this is key, as we see sometimes with the pros, as they come down here and then they jump up per se. This is how they do that, and is a key power source in order to hit the ball far. So if I move here, external, and then go back to internal the hip, if I can't internally rotate into my left hip, then all of a sudden that power source is gone. So easily I can either early extend or hang back. If we hang back on our right now, we don't have the true power that we can have in order to hit the ball far. So those are some of the swing faults that can happen as a result of not being able to do those movements. So try out that exercise, gradually work into it, do it. It only takes 5 minutes a day, and see the progress in the ability of being able to move your hips. So try it out and let me know how it goes.